So yes, thanks to Peter and Diana for having me back. I suspect that one of the reasons maybe the only reason they get me here is because I'm good at shouting at the end of the coffee break to make everyone go upstairs. But thanks to them, thanks to you for staying here, and thanks to all our Toronto listed companies for being here and telling some really good stories. I'll be quite quick because there is some lunch and a glass of wine. I was hoping to have some more up-to-date slides than I do, so if any of you were here in May, these will look horribly familiar. So I'm just going to have to sort of voice over the updates where there are updates. But I'll talk a little bit about the Canadian environment first. Obviously, everything subject to sometimes quite dramatic change at short notice these days. Broadly speaking, Canada's a fabulous place to be doing business. It's considered one of the very best in the G20 for that. Very low debt in most sectors of the economy compared to the size of the economy, and a very, very sound, very conservative banking system, all of which creates a very stable financial platform for listing companies. Toronto is kind of really is one of the major hubs now for equity finance. I think I've been working with the Canadian markets for quite a long time, and at one point it would have been considered a strong regional market. I think it is genuinely a global market now in lots of different ways, and very specifically in terms of this industry. But it can really hold its head up very high. I mean, for example, in terms of aggregate market cap, the Toronto Stock Exchange and the TSX Venture Exchange added together are at least as big, and probably with the price of gold where it is right now, bigger than the aggregate market cap of the London Stock Exchange and AIM. And that was very much not the case a decade or so back. So the Toronto markets really are a global platform in lots of sectors. We'll come to mining specifically in just a minute. It's a very international market. Of course, we all love statistics. It's very hard to be totally prescriptive about this, but we reckon on average about 40% of the flow into and out of our markets, the daily trading flow, about 40% comes from outside Canada. A lot of that is from the United States still, thank goodness. And about a quarter of the companies that are listed with us are not Canadian companies. It's a very, very international market, both in terms of the companies and the liquidity that gets executed there. So this is the picture of the market at the end of 2025, showing the sort of breakdown by broad industrial sectors. The thing that's really out of date is that I think I can do this, can I? No, is that the 5 trillion market cap is now 6 trillion. It's obviously quite a bit of that is due to what's been going on in mining. Quite a bit of that is due to what's been going on in equity markets through most of the year since April. But we are now a 6 trillion Canadian dollar market, right up there with London, bigger than anywhere else in Europe. And although not as big as the big US markets, NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, we can certainly hold our heads up with them. Last year, 128 new listings and $12 billion raised by international companies. The numbers this year, as I say, I still only have provisional ones, so my colleagues are not willing to put them into print just yet, but we will get to that. One of the reasons it's worked so well is that Canada, I think, unlike just about everywhere else, certainly that I know of, certainly of all the major markets, really has a system for listing small junior companies, including junior miners, and allowing them the space and the regulatory environment and the infrastructure and the sort of support networks to get big. So nearly 800 companies that started on the TSX Venture are now on the Toronto Stock Exchange. 60, more than 60, it's more like 70 now, again these numbers are a bit out of date, have market caps of $1 billion or more. So these are billion-dollar companies that began as very, very small junior companies on the venture exchange, and the venture helped them. Obviously, the companies had to perform, they had to do their job, succeed in their business. But if they could do that, the venture market gave them a platform that they could grow on and that they could, in due course, graduate from. So I guess in this sector, like the biggest one that everyone will know is Wheaton, which is now, whatever, I should have checked their market cap, 20 billion more. Began as a venture exchange company with a market cap in single figures of millions of dollars. In the mining sector, it's even more noticeable. Well over half of the TSX mining companies began their lives as mining companies on the venture exchange. And I know that other stock exchanges have some kind of structure to launch junior companies, and lots of exchanges are looking at methods now to increase that reach kind of down into the world of private companies. But in Toronto, it's been going on for a long time, and it's proven through markets thick and thin. I don't know whether I guess we're having a thick market at the moment. It's not thin, is it? But it really helps the companies to do that. It's a stable and comparatively benign environment in which to do business. One of the things that doesn't happen very much, I should touch some wood, is class actions. So companies can be fairly comfortable about the dangers of that. And it's reflected in things like director and officer insurance premiums, which are much lower in Toronto than, say, in the United States. Is that that's the lunch bell? I'll hurry. So on mining specifically, I mentioned this two-tier market structure, the ecosystem that works. Well over half of the TSX listed mining companies began as venture companies. The number that have graduated is into the hundreds. There were half a dozen last year. It will be more eventually, I think, in 2025. We are getting new listings. I guess if there's one area where I would be a bit sort of worried about our markets at the moment is that although lots and lots of good things are happening, I should probably talk about the good things, shouldn't I? And then I'll come on to where I'm worried. So in mining companies last year, our mining issuers raised $10.4 billion. This year, up until the end of September, it's $7.6 billion. I think, but I don't have the numbers, that October was a very, very big month. So I'm fully expecting that the full year number for 2025 will be over $10 billion raised again. It makes up almost roughly half of all the capital raising that happens in Toronto in that $6 trillion market is done by mining companies. One thing that I think was, round numbers don't really mean anything, but it's kind of nice that this year the aggregate market cap of the mining companies listed in Toronto reached $1 trillion, which is almost 1/5 of the size of Nvidia. But for the mining industry, I think it is something of a milestone. $1 trillion in market cap, the attention of the world for all sorts of reasons, good and bad. But overall, it's a good thing. It has moved back to mining, not just to precious metals, but to all kinds of different aspects of this absolutely essential industry. We get about a third market share in money raised. That's a 5-year running average. 32% of all the money raised by public mining companies is raised in mining, and a little under half of all the transactions that are done in Toronto. So again, that's sort of summing that up. 10.4 billion, I expect, will be very close or maybe even above that number in 2025. One thing that's really interesting is trading volume. Obviously, mining is being much more talked about, and there are more people investing and buying it. Trading volume in Toronto is up over 30% this year, and a disproportionate amount of that, if you really need the number, I'm going to have to send it to you, but a lot of the heavy lifting of that big increase, 30% increase in trading volume is a lot in 9 months. That's year on year, the September figure compared to September last year. An awful lot of that is actually in the junior miners. The venture exchange is doing a lot of the heavy lifting of that increase in mining volume. So I think that's encouraging, because it's been difficult for junior miners at various times in the past, but things are warming up a little bit. We've heard about different mining commodities a bit today. Gold still represents by far the largest sector. Again, this is end of year 2024. I would expect for 2025 the gold's there at 51%. My guess is it will actually be a little bit higher in 2025 at the end of the year. And we do, our companies, I should say, finance projects all over the world. You heard from some of them today. But almost half of the 5,500, as it is now, projects that are financed by companies listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange are outside Canada. It really is a global market, and it's. I really think it's a privilege to be, to represent the Toronto Stock Exchange. It has a franchise. The TSX and the TSX Venture really do have a franchise in mining. It's something we're very aware of, and something we're very protective and I would say jealous of in a positive sense. We want to maintain that and invest in that and build on that. We try to support the industry as best we can. Obviously, there's not much we can do, but what we can, we do. We're lobbying at government and regulator level, supporting events like this and other events that help miners, mining companies reach investors and potential investors to tell their essential story. So yet another way of showing that we're the best mining market in the world compared to all the others. The lunch bell has rung. I thought I would leave us with a puzzle, and I'm not going to tell you the answer. Well, you can ask me over lunch, that way you all have to come and say hello. One of those is the share price. They're both 5-year share price charts, the 5 years up to today, and one of them's, well, you can tell me what you think about them. It's not all gold, I think, is the takeaway message. I did this last year. We showed hafnium and antimony and things like that. It's not hafnium, it's not antimony. But thank you very much for your attention, and it'd be nice to talk to some of you over lunch. Thanks again, everyone, for staying. That's very bold, and thanks to the companies for giving us your business. Thank you. Thank you.